If you are in your small business and you've been feeling overwhelmed, like half of the time, there's a good chance that your tech stack is too complicated. I have a lot of conversations with business owners, either on the one to one or through intimate events that I host. And a lot of times the conversation comes up that they feel that they've picked the wrong tool. And I always want to say it's not that you picked the wrong one. It could be just how you're using the tool and how it doesn't fit into the actual workflow that you have. So, what I love to start with is actually setting this motion or this mindset of thinking that you're in a moment right now where, let's face it, there's an AI tool launching like probably every second, and every platform is going to promise you this piece of like automation or saying that there's always a better system or just over promising what they can deliver. And what I tend to see happening is that business owners keep layering tools on top of confusion. We talked about when there is confusion as far as, and I don't even want to use technical terms like workflow and systems, just really think of the step-by-step processes that it takes to actually create an action or result. When there's confusion there, most of the time business owners don't wake up thinking, I need to streamline my processes. You might wake up thinking like, why do I feel so behind? Maybe why do I feel scattered? Or instead of diagnosing the structure, you might be thinking, all right, this one tool, or if I buy this other subscription, that this tool will create clarity. No shade to the planner people. I even said, like, if you buy multiple planners, sometimes we feel like that will help our clarity or being able to actually get things done, when in reality, it only amplifies that the foundation is not very solid. So if the foundation is shaky, your tools just makes the shakiness more digital. So the framework is that every small business owner needs 4 core systems, not 17 tools. Really just 4 systems that, and we'll go through each one of them. So the first one that I love to talk about is capture. So when I talk about capture, I get to thinking of, where do your ideas land? Where do your client details go? So it's really this space of having centralization of where all these components go. And if that's unclear and they live in your head, what happens is you then start to feel that mental load. So the other piece that kind of ties into that as far as the system is the planning. So when you're now getting clear and those ideas, those tasks, those client details don't live inside your head, you can get into planning. So think of that as, how do you decide what matters this week? And if that's unclear, you start to feel behind. Most recently, I'm mostly a digital girly, but most recently I realized that I needed to actually step back and write things down. So I used to have various planners and then I went to a digital form. But now what I do is like a hybrid approach where I created a template that it helps me with weekly planning. So on top of it, you'll have a side that is for like your events or your committed things that, pretty much are blocked in your calendar as non-negotiables. And then it's a mix of the Eisenhower matrix where it talks about the important, not urgent, the important, urgent kind of task. I don't take all of them. Like, so I don't have the section where they talk about delegating, and the part that's like non-irrelevant. What I did is actually customized it, because what was more relevant to me, I also had that top part, that top portion at the template, the weekly planning template that had the top priorities, but not only writing the top priorities, but then also having a section where I can kind of like check off, am I doing that top priority on Monday? Am I doing it on Wednesday? So it puts some deadline to that task that needs to be done. The first part that I wanted to talk about was the section where maybe there's those follow-ups that kind of sit in your head, like you're doing one task, but then you're thinking, oh, I need to send that email back to so-and-so. It gives me a centralized space because I'm in this phase of feeling that I need to write things down so it doesn't get lost in my digital ecosystem. And so for those types of things, I have a section for that. I am also, if you followed me in multiple spaces, I talk a lot about health being wealth. And something that I have been treasuring and really realigning myself with is my daily habits. So, whether that be something where I'm tracking the amount of movement I'm doing per day, the amount of water intake I have, or hydration, which let me tell you, it has been a struggle. But just thinking of the different daily habits that I'll want to track for that particular week. And it has a little area that you can check off, based on that week, how many times you've accomplished it. Yes, I do have a digital form of this, but I don't know. Lately, it's been so much power in being able to write it down and reflect back to it. So when I talk about the hybrid approach, I do actually do daily planning through my Google Calendar. So I currently have a Google Workspace account through the business, but I migrate all the calendars into there so I could see everything based on the different roles that I play to be able to see everything in one shot. So this alone helps me to really centralize, similar to how we're talking about capturing. So capturing the ideas, the task for client details. I actually use ClickUp for project management. And a myriad of things. But as we're talking about in this particular live and how it relates, that capture and planning for me is in this hybrid approach right now in this season of being half writing and half digital. And so when we get into the third type of system that the small business owner will need, it's delivery. So we market and we put out all this word about the product or service that we're offering, but how are we delivering that to the clients based on what we said we would deliver? So how does a client move through your process? And yes, we could get all fancy. I actually had a one-on-one coaching session with a client where we spoke as far as a CRM, which is your customer relationship management tool. And to be honest, as much as I talk about that tool, and I love them, by the way, but there are different levels to it. And each one, again, with not understanding what you need, you may pick the wrong one. And the worst thing you could do is invest so much money into a tool that you never even use. So I say that to the simplest form, that how you move clients through your process could be in some structured form of a Google spreadsheet, maybe even using something like Airtable, which is, I love to explain it like, it's almost like a Google Excel spreadsheet and like an Access database had a baby and they merged together. But it's just a beefed up way, in my opinion, to be able to kind of expand on the just the data that you're collecting, the data storage, how you see it, how you're being able to use it and move clients through your process. And it just goes back to what I've kind of been honing in on for the past couple lives, is that if that's unclear, things start to feel heavier than they really should for you in business. The last piece that I'll touch on is follow up. I think it's a very underrated or kind of like missed opportunity, but I love to think of it of like, how does money continue moving within your small business? So again, this confusion and having unclear steps or actions can make your revenue feel unpredictable. So now here's the important part. So the tool should actually support one of these four. So if you can't clearly answer what system does this tool support, then that tool might not be necessary. And I'm not anti-tech. In fact, I'm a tech girly. I'm definitely here for all the technology that can help us in, whether it be saving time, increasing our revenue, or all those things along that line. I'm definitely for tech. But what I have seen in the industry is that a lot of business owners are becoming, even in the age of AI, still overwhelmed because they're just kind of gravitating to whatever gets put out. Now that we've gone through pretty much those four frameworks, I want to actually get into this point of like, I know a lot of business owners will have multiple like project management tools. They'll be trying different CRMs, notes apps, and AI kind of layered everywhere and anywhere. But keep thinking back to, if your workflow is chaotic or your steps are chaotic or you're not even sure what they are, then nothing sticks. It's really all about simplifying, and not just for the aesthetics of like saying, "Oh, I'm using XYZ." So I want you to really embrace that mindset of, sometimes it's literally going back to foundations and finding the thing that's even the simplest. In fact, I myself recently have been maximizing on my Google Workspace account to make sure that what I'm already paying for, that I'm not duplicating or overlapping with things just because. In fact, there are some great AI like creative tools inside of Google Workspace, like, to create graphics, to even use Gemini in your email. In fact, that's what we're going to be talking about, is using Gemini as your chief of staff. And so I'll leave you with this, so that before you buy anything new, I really want you to like take a look at your tools and ask, which of the four systems that we talked about today are the tools actually supporting? And if you can't answer it quickly, I want you to pause. I want you to, really maybe even put a little star next to it. Or if you're on, a digital document, maybe like make it bold or something. Inside this framework that we're talking about, small business foundational reset, we'll be talking about Gemini and how that AI feature is already integrated in what most of you already use. As always, I'm cheering you on. Love y'all.